All right, now just bringing up something we discussed earlier in Rod's rant. I thought it was an interesting conversation, more of a thought experiment when it comes to the Texas-Oklahoma game. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about the Texas-Oklahoma rosters, and I presented him with a thought experiment, and really I didn't expect it to go down the path it did, and I'm not trying to sound cocky and arrogant, but it was this thought experiment that really made me believe that Texas not only is going to win the game, but they should win it comfortably. If you had to look at both rosters, say you put both rosters, Texas and Oklahoma, all right, side by side, and let's take it from the Texas side, is there a player on the Oklahoma roster who you would trade for if you were obviously the head coach at Texas? Is there a player on that roster you'd rather have than a player that's on the Texas roster right now? That's the thought experiment. What player on the Oklahoma roster would you rather have than the player at that position on the Texas roster? And I came up with like 4, maybe. Obviously, the most obvious is kicker. I don't even know what their kicker is, but everybody's like, "Oh, kicker, take kicker." I don't know what their kicker has done, but obviously, Bert Auburn has been inconsistent so far this year. Even Sark was asked about whether they were going to change kickers, and Sark said no, that he's going with Bert Auburn and that he's just got to find some consistency. So maybe kicker is up there. They have a really good inside linebacker, off-ball linebacker, Stutzman, who's a really good player. As a matter of fact, we just had Taylor McCarg on, and he said the strength of the defense, maybe the strength of the team, is their linebacking core. You got Jalen Ford, but the other linebacker, the other off-ball linebacker, maybe Stutzman could be considered a better player. Man, their leading receiver is Drake Stoops in terms of receptions. A receiver wouldn't be on that list. Offensive line, defensive line, I don't think anybody. Dylan Gabriel is a possibility because he is a 6-year quarterback and he's really prolific, and he is the first good quarterback Texas is going to face. But they do face Quinn Ewers in practice. And would you trade a Dylan Gabriel?
Yeah, that's an argument
for Quinn Ewers? Maybe.
Well, and remember, but when it's talking about the system you're running, you would want Dylan Gabriel for Kendall Briles' system
for that Art Briles, yes. Yes, you're right about that.
But for what Sark wants to run, which is his system, pro style, probably want the bigger arm. Mm-hmm. Probably want the ability to spin it down the field and make all the throws. That's more Quinn, so that's at least a push. At this point,
I wasn't trying to be cocky and arrogant. This is not me trying to,
You're just breaking down the rosters and trying to find out who has an advantage.
I'm not trying to give Longhorn fans a lot of Kool-Aid to drink. I'm just saying, from the thought experiment, do it from the other side if you want to too as well. I think if you do it from the Oklahoma side, you'd probably take like 15 guys, maybe.
Yeah,
something like that. You definitely take all the wide receivers,
all the wide.
You take all the wide outs. You take the tight end,
the D line.
You take like 3 players on the D-line. Sweat, Murphy on the D-line at least. Hell, maybe Collins, 2 on the D-line. Linebacker, you take Jalen Ford. Take Jadae Barron.
Well, it's funny because as you're talking about this, I was so every week, Andy Staples, the reporter, the great college football writer, he does a podcast, a little interview with Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl, and they were talking about this game, and they started with a conversation with Dylan Gabriel that he thinks maybe Dylan's a little bit overlooked for,
he's a good player,
for the draft class and looking at these quarterbacks. But then he said Gabriel will have a tough task against the Longhorns. Nagy highlighted a couple of seniors on the defensive line, Sweat and Alfred Collins, could spell trouble. He says Texas has a bunch of guys. They've got the 2 D tackles up front, Sweat and Collins. They're different players, very different. So if you're a guard or center playing those 2 guys, different challenge. Sweat is all power. He's going to come right down the middle. Collins gives you a little bit more. He's longer too. I'm talking about Byron Murphy, who's probably their best defensive lineman.
No, he didn't bring him up.
Yeah. And he said elsewhere on defense, Gabriel will have to watch out for linebacker Jalen Ford and cornerback Jadae Barron. He says then you've got Jalen Ford, you got Jadae Barron at nickel, got a bunch of different guys at safety. They got NFL guys all over that defense. It's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, that's why I said, you even do it from the Oklahoma side, to be fair. I think they end up taking or trading for 10 to 12, maybe even 15 of the Texas players. I would take Danny Stutzman at the off-ball linebacker opposite Jalen Ford. You probably could argue a guy like Key Lawrence, who's a really good player for them. You could probably argue Billy Bowman, who's a good player for them too.
He's a big 5-star kid, 4 or 5-star kid.
I'm not saying where they would go because I'd take Jadae Barron, and we'd have to get really specific about it. And I'd take their kicker. Their kicker actually is he's better than statistically than Bert Auburn. He's
Zach
at
Schmidt.
yes,
Schmidt
he's
is
at
their
80,
kicker.
He's at 86% field goal percentage.
Zach Schmidt. He's kind of a stocky kid.
Yeah. And he's made 29 out of 29 extra points. So
yeah, he's a redshirt junior.
So there you go. You take the kicker and you take. I think you hit the nail on the head though. For Sark's system, Dylan Gabriel doesn't fit. I always say, picking a starting quarterback is like picking a significant other, the woman you marry or man, not the hottest woman you ever dated. They were the one that was most compatible with you. Dylan Gabriel is way more compatible with Jeff Levy's offense, and Quentin Ewers is way more compatible with Sark's offense. So I don't even know if that necessarily fits, but it's one you could debate.
All right, so we'll take your thoughts. On paper, Texas has superior talent. Pretty much across the board. But as we heard from Taylor McCarg last hour, the former Rice quarterback, now CBS analyst, who called an Oklahoma game this year when they played SMU, said dramatic improvement in team speed. So, they'll be able to run with Texas. Because that was the thing that being at the Cotton Bowl last year, watching this thing develop, OU was slow. OU was really slow on defense. I mean, Texas just ran up. I mean, Bijan, there was no contest.
Yeah.
And Jatavion Sanders was like running away from their defensive backs. They've upgraded that, but again, Texas is better than they were last year too. And this game was 49-0 a year ago. I don't know that it gets out of hand like that because I think Dylan Gabriel and they'll put some points on the board. But this one could look a lot like what we've seen from Texas, right? Close into the third quarter, 16-13 kind of game, and then Texas just with their depth and superior talent just kind of pull away. But the thing that will prevent that is turnovers. And
turnovers will be big.
Brett Venables coming up with some disguised coverages, things that surprise. You think you're in a man, all of a sudden you're in a zone and throw it out to the flat and now you're in trouble, that kind of stuff.
They lead the Big 12 in takeaways right now. They got 10 interceptions. That's a lot. That's a lot for your first 5 games.
Yeah.
I
watched several of those against Cincinnati, and that Cincinnati quarterback's not very good. But,
hey, Sawyer Robertson wasn't that good.
Yeah, I know.
You ain't got 10 interceptions.
No, that's true. That's true.
So you played 3 backups. Where's my picks at?
Yeah, where are my picks?
Come on now.